All right, y'all. Welcome to Unbound, where curiosity flows freely, shame melts at the door, and pleasure is absolutely encouraged to make itself comfortable. All right, let's talk.
Let's get into it.
So, have you seen any of the Diddy documentary?
I have not, but I've heard some things based off of what's in these streets and people who have.
Yeah, I've seen clips of it. I haven't been able to kind of like fully watch it through, but there's a lot of shit that's going on with that particular topic and conversation. There's a lot within himself and within his family before he even started doing things with other people.
I mean, everything related to Diddy is a lot over just the past year and a half of what we've experienced. So this is just adding to it at this point.
So I think the discovery for me in this topic that I feel like I never really got a chance to like hear about much was that his mom allegedly groomed him. Like his mom was the person who kind of introduced him to this lifestyle, who like was very open with like I guess her own experiences that led him to be groomed in this kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is the truth, um oh, that's problem. You know, that's why he grooms other people because he was led in love in that same kind of way.
It's kind of like following what you know in terms of what you've been taught, or at least what you've seen around you that was deemed acceptable, right? So a parent is showing you what's acceptable and unacceptable behavior typically in a household. So you're taking that and you're just saying, I'm doing what I've known to be viewed as acceptable.
Yeah, that's extremely problematic. Because while I understand like being raised in a house like that, I feel like when you get into society, you start to see that things are not the same in that kind of way. So do you then make a conscious decision by saying, "Oh, maybe the way that I was raised, or maybe how I experienced intimacy and love in this kind of way was actually not healthy"?
It's but that's that person's experience, and if that's how they grew up and not knowing that this was something that was deemed maybe taboo from a societal standpoint, when you come of age, other people can try to tell you something different, but you might not necessarily be willing to take that in. And there's
Oh,
many a times that past so what I tend to tell clients is past experience inform present behaviors or behaviors. So if that was viewed as acceptable when you were growing up and in your household, that informs how you're doing it in certain types of relationships and how that's coming out. Because we know what allegedly is taking place with Cassie and everything with that. So if we just take that, okay, now we have this background contextual information of this was viewed as acceptable for him.
hmm. I guess that makes sense. I don't know. Like, I feel like for me, like I started to notice my differences because I'm Haitian, grew up in a Haitian household. I started to notice the differences between how I was raised and what my friends at that age were experiencing. Like middle school, you start to say, "Oh, you don't put agenu." Agenu is something like we do as Haitian people, like before it's like the appetizer before you get a spanking, if you
Hmm.
will. You kneel, agenu, and then you get a spanking or you get a punishment or whatever. And then, you know, kids, we just talk about like things at home. And when I would often hear how other students or other my peers were being punished, like ingenue was not a thing for them. So I was like, oh, that's a difference. And so like I started to notice the difference between certain things. And I always feel like when you know better, you do better.
Very true.
And granted, I get, you know, I just don't want to make the excuse that like I get like his grooming past informs his behavior, but at some point, like, do we say, let me rehabilitate myself? Let me go to therapy for this. Let me do something about this. That's where I feel like the fault came in because somebody had to say something. You had to at some point realize that something was not clean in the buttermilk, but you continue with that. And that kind of segues into the one who shall not be named, R. Kelly. Like, hearing R. Kelly's story, like if we didn't know R. Kelly and it was not R. Kelly's situation, everything before he starts to groom young ladies, before he started to groom young ladies, it's a tragic story. You know, he was raised in a house. His sister or cousin were allegedly molesting him and his brother before they were 18. And so that was his introduction to sex. That was his introduction to intimacy. So it makes sense that he went on to groom other people. It's not acceptable, but it made sense. But then after a while, it's like, well, you can't continue to be what the hell happened to you because now you fucking up other people's lives and now you're like you're imprinting your own experiences on other people.
I I I totally agree with you when it comes to that. But it does, just to give like a little bit of pushback here, it has to do with the person getting to a point where they realize that this is this unacceptable behavior and I need to do something about it. And there's so many people who will hold on to, I view this as acceptable because this is how I was raised or it's been normalized in some way. So what they will do is they will just keep it away from everybody else. It's not a let me rationalize it. It's a no, you all don't understand. So I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it in this dimly lit room over here, right? Like kind of like our sexuality when it comes to us being gay men. It's like you all don't get it, so we're gonna have these types of parties at Fire Island. We're gonna have the glory holes. We're gonna have the room in the back of the Triple X stores.
The only pushback I'll give to that is I feel like completely two different completely scenarios and situations.
Okay.
When someone's telling you you're harming a child or you're doing something with somebody who cannot consent, like, because of a particular kind of age, and you know it, when you go back in that corner in the dark, you're doing it, you're hiding it because it's shame.
Very true.
Now, it's that same shame feeling that you're talking about, like how that pushed us into having sex behind closed doors. But I would say it is not for me, I feel like being queer and gay is not a moral issue. What Diddy allegedly did to Cassie and what R. Kelly allegedly did to all those young ladies, that is a moral issue. Like you know better at that point. Like people go out and figure out like, oh, this is not right. Even if you were doing it for the first year or two, like when you were in your 19, 20 or whatever, like someone had to say something for him to have such a covert operation. I'm talking about R. Kelly now, where his bodyguards and stuff are bringing him underage girls. That makes me think you knew you were doing something wrong because you hid it.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. You know what is interesting is there are people within our field as therapists and mental health professionals who work with that population. It's not something I've ever done, and with any private client, that's not something that has been brought into the space as something we need to deal with. And that takes a lot, even for us to have to deal with, to say, like, I know that they see this even as an issue and it's something that we'll work through, but because of the morals and the values and the stigma that's attached to it, it can be a lot for us as mental health professionals even to take that on. I mean, what we deal with on a regular basis is already a lot. So adding that to it can be extremely like difficult for us.
Yeah. I do believe that prison should be a space of reform. And there should be therapists and mental health professionals that are out there to specifically take care of this population because they do need therapy too.
They do.
They've had their own experiences where, we have to rehabilitate them in a way that makes sense so that, once they are free and among the people, they're not repeating these same kind of behaviors. But I really do see the value in having specific therapists who have specific experiences to help these people because they need it.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is that prisons tend to be the biggest mental health providers by state, by and large, bigger than any agencies and or private practices. And if we think about the turnover rate of therapists, so success is really in our world of therapy is driven by how consistent you are with as the client and the therapist coming together. If you're a couple, how consistently you're coming in, right? That's why we say if you miss an appointment or two, there's a problem here because we're not going to make much progress if you're not being consistent. And in those type of spaces, just from what I know from people from our community as mental health professionals, is there's a higher turnover rate. It is just a lot, and there's a high burnout factor associated with dealing with the criminal population and reform. So I absolutely agree that it's something that needs to be addressed, and there should be mental health professionals that are helping address that. It's just that the turnover rate is just so high that I don't think that there's much success that's really coming out of the prisons.
I agree. Damn. It when you said the most like mental health professionals in that space, I thought to myself, so why aren't more of these people who are exited out of prisons and jails more reformed? Like I've spoken to quite a bit of people who have exited jail and prison, and they had caseworkers. They told me about caseworkers versus a therapist, and the difference between a caseworker and a therapist is vast.
Right.
A caseworker helps you with like things, connections, like when you get out, where you need to go to get your stuff. If you need help with housing, that's what a caseworker does. A therapist helps you mentally. A therapist helps you unpack things, realize why your patterns are the way that they are. And I think that that would be so helpful for people who have had experiences like those two people because, they were also groomed, which is why they groom other people. Not an excuse, but giving a reason as to, why they did the way that they did.
But between the two of us and the years that we now have in this field, I know I haven't met anybody that has actually said this is the specific population and or issues I want to tackle. Have you?
Hell no. No.
Right. So if you
Oh my
think
God,
about that,
no.
right. So if you think about that and how many people that we know, how many years that we've been in the field between the two of us and we can't come across somebody in the areas we've lived and or worked and or see clients, right? Whether it be agency work, whether it's been in the school, like whatever environment, we've never come across anybody in our respective space who says like, yeah, that's my population. I want to do that. I know people from who work with a lot of different populations and address a lot of different issues. That is not one I've ever heard of.
I agree. Damn, I never thought about it until you said that.
Right. So that means you end up there generally by like happenstance of they needed somebody. I'm gonna go there. I can get my hours, and guess what? As soon as I'm done,
I'm out.
I'm out.
Yeah.
So
She's on
how does
brand.
that bode well for the clients in the jail, right? If you're there for a certain period, a fixed period, just as a means to an end, and you're gone, what work is like? What meaningful work is there going to really be when it comes to the client?
None, really. She's on brand.
And yeah, work in progress. So yeah.
So on the flip side of that, I think that this couple or this relationship, I guess they're a couple or relationship dynamic, they get a lot of flack, but I absolutely love them. I love how they work, and I love that they're very visible. And I'm talking about Neo and his girlfriends. I think that their relationship is beautiful. I like that I think he has three girlfriends currently. And it sounds like they're all consenting adults, and they having fun. They're taking pictures together. But the issue that I have is that I feel like their relationship gets chewed a lot in the public, and specifically a lot in the black community. Like they call the girls stupid. I would never share my man. Like, you have to have low self esteem in order to be in that kind of dynamic of a relationship. And I'm just kind of like, no, you don't. Like, not everybody wants a regular, vanilla, um, one on one monogamous relationship. Like, and that's okay. Like, these people are all consenting adults. He has said, like, I think from what I understand, like he only allows them to date him, or there's some understanding where the women only date him, but he can enter other people. And I think people have an issue with that. Which, yeah, I can talk about this forever.
I mean, I feel like the way that this looks externally is as if he is making a harem for himself. Now, what I want to be very careful of is I respect and appreciate a woman or a person's autonomy. So these women are nobody's as far as been shared, nobody's coercing these women. Nobody's saying that you must be in this type of relationship. They are consenting adults. And from what has been shared within the public eye, they've all agreed to this. It is just the dynamic of when I think about their relationship, there's poly relationships, and I was not familiar in any way, shape, or form of I am this person and you're only dating me as individuals and you're not dating anybody else. I had not seen that because there are different types of poly relationships, but I had not heard of that specific dynamic where it's everybody can date me, nobody can date outside of me.
Yeah. I think a similar relationship structure to that like is a V relationship. Like it's 3-person relationship. So it's like one person like me, and I'm dating one person here, and they're not dating anyone else, and I'm dating one person here, and they're not dating anyone else either. They don't even cross over. I prefer a V relationship.
I mean, it's like that can be like 4, 5, 6 V's at that point. I mean, I guess
you a star at that point.
Not a star.
But I think for me, like the biggest thing is if everybody's a consenting adult and everybody's happy, forget what it looks like to society. Like it works. Like if you are a age appropriate consenting adult, there is no like power dynamic that's playing a role in it. If that's the kind of relationship you want, have it. Who am I to say? Like also like to kind of piggyback on Saweetie, the singer. I love Saweetie. And recently, Sukiyana said on some interview podcast that she was doing, she was like, a lot of these rap bitches sell pussy. I feel like Sweetie sell pussy. You just need to come out and say it. And I was just kind of like, bitch, why is that your business? If she sold pussy, why she got to tell the world she sell pussy? Why are people so interested in what you are doing with your body just to talk about you?
I mean, that goes into a whole different topic, in my opinion, of just like people want more of your life than because just because you're a public figure does not mean that your entire life is owed to everybody within the public.
Hello, somebody.
Because if you are in sports, it's, well, no, I'm going to come here, I'm going to play this game, I'm going to do my absolute best when it comes to my athleticism and my skill set. If it's, I'm a rapper, I'm a singer, I'm going to come and I'm going to nail it at this concert or wherever the venue is where I'm to perform. But when it comes to my life, like everybody should, and this is not, you don't even have to be in the public sphere. It is what part of my life is up for public consumption in terms of even friends and others versus what's not. You got to decide what that is for you. So we have all these different views, but going back to just even real quickly, like the relationship aspect, regardless of what my opinion is, I always tell people, boo, do what works for you. Every relationship is absolutely different. Even if it is monogamous, heterosexual relationship, it is still very different. And a very common example is if you think about a military wife. Military wives do not see their husband, especially when they're on active duty and they've been deployed. When they've been deployed, they'll be deployed for months. That is not a traditional relationship as other people who literally, you come home and I see you every single night with maybe some travel here or there. That is an entirely different relationship and understanding that comes along with being a military wife. So monogamy, heterosexual, but it's still very different.
Yeah.
So do what works for you, regardless of everybody's opinion.
Yeah. I want to see more openness in relationships. Like, I want to see more people being open and talking about like what it looks like. Not even necessarily talking about it, just being visible. Like, I feel like Neo and his girlfriends do a good job at just being visible. Let people assume what the hell they want to.
Yeah, I agree with that.